Hi, so I'm Dennis Wedin, or Wedin. I'm the graphic artist and designer for Hotline Miami, Hotline Miami 2, and Keyboard Drumset Fucking Werewolf, if anyone played that one. So my talk is going to be about making a sequel. So yeah, Hotline Miami 2 feels like a game about the difficulty of making a sequel to Hotline Miami 1. That's a quote I found on a review, and it's actually very true, because a lot of the things in Hotline Miami 2 is kind of a mirror on how we discussed making a sequel, what people want, all that. So we made a game called Hotline Miami 1, or just Hotline Miami. So we finished that game, and when we did that, we always felt like we could do a sequel about this. But we wanted to make a game in between, before we're doing Hotline Miami 2, but we couldn't really stop talking about Hotline Miami 2. We always started making stuff for other game, and then we always went back to like, oh, this character for Hotline Miami 2 would be cool. Yeah, I'm noting it down for later. So eventually we just felt like, let's do Hotline Miami 2 and just get every idea that we have, everything in there, and then just get it out of the system. And this is what our studio really wanted to do. And then we started thinking about maybe this is not what everyone else wants a studio to make. So first time it dawned on me that this is not maybe what people expect from us or want from us was this article in a Swedish video game magazine. And it came out after E3 in 2013, which was the first time we showed Hotline Miami 2. Yeah, so it's in Swedish. So what it says is like a preview of the game is. So what it is, by who and why, and then they have the worst that could happen and the best that could happen. And in the section of the worst that could happen, they'd say Hotline Miami 2 is just the same, which is the last we want from innovators like Dennaton. And then it made me think about sequels as a concept, and how sequels nowadays kind of look bad. It's almost like a safe way of doing games, which is not how I see sequels. For me, sequels are probably one of the best games I've ever played, like Street of Rage 2 on Mega Drive, Mega Man 3, Street Fighter 2, all of them is awesome games. And the same thing for new games, like all of these games, Bioshock 2, Black Flag, Halo 3, all of them are games that I like. There's also games that have good reviews and good Metacritic scores. But at the same time, the companies making these games, they are like very obvious in the way that why they're making these games. It's a safe way of doing it. It's short for them to get the money back. And I understand that because it's big studios and they have a lot of employees that need to get paid. But I think it pisses people off a lot because it feels like almost like a trap, like a bait. We know you're going to buy this game. And so I think the sequels nowadays kind of look like, yeah, a safe way out. And I think the audience is fed up with that, which is really sad. So when we started talking about really making Hotline Miami 2, it's like, how do we approach this? So we talked about, because we are very inspired by movies, not really inspired by games that much. So we looked at movies that are very ultra-violent, because Hotline Miami 1 was seen as a very ultra-violent game. So, for example, Kick-Ass 2, both the comic and the game, like the comic and the movie, the first one was very, very graphical, bloody, and the second one they added a really elaborate rape scene. It's the same thing for The Hills Have Eyes 2. The first one had some like very weird scenes, but in the second one they have like this really graphical rape scene. And the same thing for Halloween, the remake. The first one didn't have any of that, and the second, and like the remake, they added a lot of that. So it feels like ultra-violent movies, when they try to amp up the violence, they always tend to go towards sexual violence. Like it's almost like the natural next step to be like in people's faces and really be, I can't find a word, help me. Yeah, obnoxious, yeah. Yeah, offensive, like be really offensive, like they were with the first movie. So with that in mind, we started thinking about a character that we had. He was called the Pig Butcher, and he was only used for the first trailer for Hotline Miami 1. And the concept for that trailer came from a friend who pitched this idea when we started talking about making a trailer. And he pitched this like horror vibe slasher theme for the trailer, which was really surprising to us because this was not how we saw Hotline Miami 1, but this was the way that he saw it. And we felt this like really interesting that you can see our game in such different ways. And based on that, when we released the game, there was also a lot of theories around the story that, so Jacket, the main character, he saves a girl and he brings her back to his apartment and she stays there. And some theories or some people saw Jacket as a kidnapper and that he held the girl captive in his apartment and abused her, which was also really surprising because there's no element or no details or anything showing that. She's only there like eating a sandwich, sleeping, taking a bath. So this was also really surprising but really interesting to us. So with all these in mind, we created this first scene for Hotline Miami 2 with the Pig Butcher. And we wanted it to be so different from Hotline Miami 1 as we saw it, and also portray like how some people actually saw Hotline Miami 1. So we gave a fictional movie crew and a director the ability to rethink what happened in Hotline Miami 1 within the game. So the scenes start off with you getting into a house and it's just teenagers there, and some of them even try to run away from you, which is never happening in Hotline Miami 1. Like everyone tries to kill you, but this character doesn't. So it should like make a signal to you that this is not Hotline Miami. And then you get upstairs and you attack this girl, and then you get on top of her, which is also very not like Hotline Miami at all. And right when the game or when the player assumes, okay, this is gonna be visually graphical, maybe sexual violence, the game cuts, which is us saying to the player that this is not where we're going. Maybe you thought that this is the route that we were gonna take, but you're not gonna take it. So the game cuts to the director and everything stops. And then the game continues and turns into like the normal Hotline Miami that most people see it with animal masks. So this is the second thing that we were thinking about, is like what people want Hotline Miami 2 to be. And I think most people wanted more Jacket, like the main character. They want more of the same, and they want masks, and they want phone messages. So we created this group of people that we actually call the fans within the game. And all of them have animal masks, and they want to be Jacket. But he's not in the game anymore, so they're trying to do his part. And they're waiting for the phone to ring, so they try to like go around town, find thugs on their own, and kill them. So hopefully they will get this phone call. And it kind of symbolizes what these people want out of the game, like the normal stuff, like just the same. But what we wanted to do was something different. So we wanted to change the gameplay, because in the first one you kind of play this game the same way all the way through. Most people find a mask, usually Tony, because he's very overpowered in the first game, and they stick to Tony throughout the whole game, and they play it the same way and don't switch it up anyway. So we took away from most characters like masks. So we created a lot of different characters instead of just one, and they have no choices. They play the same way all the time. So we wanted to like force the, hey Niklas. So we wanted to force the character to play differently all the time. So for example, Pardo has more like gun oriented, because in the first game most people play with melee. So we wanted people to try to play more with guns. And with Evan in the middle, he's not violent at all, so you have to really be careful how you treat people, like treat the enemy. and the soldier can't pick up any weapons at all, so he's very like fixed to how he plays. And we also wanted to work a lot with, because we had all these characters, and we knew that we couldn't make them as blank as Jacket was in the first game, because that would be boring. Then everyone would just be like the same character with different skins on it. So we worked a lot on personality. We gave them names, which is something we didn't do for Hotline Miami 1 at all. And we wanted to work a lot more on the story. So everything in the game had to like work within the story. Like we wanted to create a world for this one. So the same thing with the levels. Every level has their own like personality. So there's a lot more graphic in everything, and you kind of feel like, okay, this is a mall, or this is like the sewers, or a squat, stuff like that, which is very different from Hotline Miami 1, because that's mainly just random apartments that all look the same. But at the same time, you can see at the end of Hotline Miami, because we started out making this game very small. So apartments felt like, okay, if we do 10 levels, apartment works. But then the game grew, and people wanted a big game out of it, so we had to change it. So at the end of the game, you can actually see that we're moving towards this, making the levels more personal, like the police station or the arcade, for example. The problem with making levels realistic is that you try to make them look natural. Like the first one, there's levels when you actually enter the apartment through the toilet, which is really weird. But in this one, everything had to feel like this could be a real world, which makes it also the problem that some parts of it are really big. Like this is a power plant, and a power plant is huge. So we had all these open spaces to actually make it feel like a huge power plant, which a lot of players really, really, really hated when we released the game. And the same for the soundtrack. In the first one, we had a lot of songs just looping in each chapter. But in the second one, we wanted to give each character their own kind of theme. So for example, the Pig Butcher, we gave him very Carpenter vibe sound to it. And for the fans, it was very action-oriented and very Hotline Miami vibe to it. And Evan, who is a bit more calm, has slower songs that is not so frantic. So what are the pros or cons of doing this, like doing a sequel? And for us, the pros was that you made a game that actually works, that actually people like. So instead of starting from the beginning, you can actually build on what you have. And this is what I feel is like the most important thing about making a sequel. And that's why it's so sad that people tend to feel like innovating is better than working on something you already done. You have to like the next thing all the time. Why not build on a good idea and make it even better? Because there's a lot of things in Hotline Miami 1 that is broken or not working correctly. Like Tony, for example. In Hotline Miami 2, we really worked on him and took away all his weapons and made him into a more fun character. And we added like the roll and the duel, and you can really get into the details and the world and the gameplay, and like flesh it out like they did before. Like Mega Man 1 is not that good of a game, but Mega Man 2 is a really, really good game. And Mega Man 3, I think, is the best game. So it shouldn't be bad to make a sequel. But then again, the problems are, and for us, the problem was that we announced the game way too early. So the hype kind of started building almost 2 years, and it never slowed down, which is a good thing, of course. I mean, I'm happy that people are hyped for a game, but it turned into this huge hype, which they wanted a game that never could have been created. Like it's almost like this feeling of a sequel instead of just thinking about what a sequel is. So it turns into this this thing that you can't create. And it was the same for us. Like we felt like working on it for so long that we almost hyped up ourselves. Like when we release this game, everybody gonna go crazy. Like this is the best fucking game in the world, which is also a problem because that is not what happened. And you can never get rid of the first game. Like everything you do with this franchise is is mirrored against the first game that you did. And a lot of people, especially with Hotline Miami 1, I felt a lot of people have like a personal relationship with that game based on the story and what is happening. You have to be very personal. You have to add your own personal ideas to what the game is about. So no matter what you do, the reaction will be nasty from some people because it's almost like you're offending them personally. Yeah, that's what I had. I pretty much came here to play, so. But yeah, if you have questions about making a sequel, please share them with me. No?
If anyone has a question, you can come up to the stage, since we don't have microphones that we can give it to the audience. Anyone?
All good.
Johan. You have to come here.
Are you hungover?
Yes. So you looked a lot at movies when you did the first one and the second one. Would you say that there is more to gain from looking at other mediums like movies and other stuff like that? Then would you say that it's more interesting to make a game if you don't look at like fucking Super Mario or something when you want to make a platform game? Should you read Nabokov and then make another Super Mario, or how should you go at it? Like, how would you recommend people to find inspiration?
I mean, for us, the main rule for the Dennaton games is not making games that already exist, because people have already played them. So we want to make games that we want to play. So there's no like a point of watching other games, because they are there. Like, there's no point of making that game. I mean, we were inspired, for example, by Super Meat Boy with the whole die repeat thing. But I think you can like, if you make games, you don't have to just look at games. I mean, you have everything, like the music and movies and TV series and documentaries, like everything can be, because we have a media that can actually use all of this.
So next game is going to be inspired by Dallas?
Dallas. Dallas salad.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And another question, I think you were here first, but yes.
Maybe a less technical one. Hotline Miami 3, when's it coming?
It's not. If you play the game, you can actually see that we made Hotline Miami 3, but it sucked, so we taped it over with Hotline Miami 2. So.
All right. I haven't finished it yet. I'm on the 12th scene. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, we taped it over with Hotline
it.
Miami 2, because that's way better. So.
All right.
If anyone played it, you will know what I'm talking about.
Could you please go to the first in-game screenshot?
I have to restart it.
Oh, damn it. I'm sorry.
What is that software?
Game Maker 7. It's almost as old as us. What is it, the first in-game?
Screenshot, yeah. So yeah, here on this level, for the first time, I was able to disarm all the enemies, like all the guards. And I was kind of frustrated because the game actually forced me to murder violently already unarmed guards, because like I couldn't get like further in the game. So was it like a design decision, or it just like you just didn't think about it? It's like if I didn't want to kill everybody.
Yeah, I mean, he's a cop, and all days are bad guys, so you have to kill them. I mean,
yeah, just the point is like it forced me even like it made me even worse person because they were already unarmed, and
yeah,
so
but he's not a good cop.
Okay, all right.
If you have played the game, I don't want to more spoil this, but he's a really dirty cop.
Yeah.
I mean, no normal cop would go in guns blazing, unless like it's Die Hard or stuff like that, which was also inspired. It's like the 90s, so we wanted this cop character to be like that. Go in by yourself, don't listen to your supervisors, and kill everyone. So.
Oh, thank you.
I had a question. Listening to your talk, it sounded that you guys were very strongly influenced by your fan base when it came to a lot of the design decisions that you made in Hotline Miami 2. If you were to do it again, would you prefer to be in a vacuum without that? I mean, obviously it brings a lot of motivation and things like that because, as you said, it got a lot of hyped up. That gave you guys a lot of energy and stuff like that. Was it worth it in the end? Would you prefer to be making something completely new where it's like, okay, we've got this freedom, we don't have these expectations and things like that. On the flip side, you don't have this energy and stuff behind it that's kind of motivating and pushing you guys along. What were your feelings and thoughts throughout the whole process?
For us, Hotline Miami 2 is actually like the game that we wanted to make. We don't want to change anything. But we made the first game and hoped that people would see all the details and make all these like interpretations and theories about the story. So seeing that made us really motivated. Like, okay, this is also like making a sequel. In the first one, we worked a lot with the apartment, but we stopped there because we felt like maybe this is just work that no one will see at all. And seeing that people are really interested in the details made us like, okay, we can really go full force, because there was a lot more stuff we wanted to make in the first one, but is it worth the time to actually do all this stuff? So making the second one, seeing that people were really inspired with this, made us make a better game. So I'm really glad that, but I wish we could have just kept it a more like a secret, maybe a year longer or something. So.
Hi, the other guy was talking about forcing with disarming, and I want to talk about or ask about the rape scene, because you kind of force it on a player. I know that there's a warning at the beginning, but it's kind of awkward because you are missing stuff on purpose, and then you have to do this stuff if you want to don't miss stuff, and it's just strange. And I don't know what my question was, but I wanted to talk about that thing because it's got a lot of critic.
Yeah, I mean, it forces you to do that scene, but movies that you watch, they also force you to see that scene. But one thing that I was a bit sad about was in the beginning, the media, when they started posting about it, they actually cut out the game cutting the scene. They made it into them cutting the scene and implying that it actually continues, which it doesn't, because it was really important for us to like stop there. It's like, this is not the game we are making. But then again, it might have been too much meta for people. I understand that, and that's why we added so you can remove it, because we were maybe too smart for our own like good. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to make that. It was very important for us to work. It's not. How should I say? It was an important segment. We don't want to cut it out because it was a huge part of us discussing how to make a sequel, and yeah.
Not many people are sadly so smart and can look in your head and.
But then again, as I said, we make the game that we want to play, and it kind of works. It can backfire, and it backfired. But we are making the games that we want to play, and at the end, hopefully, people will enjoy it as well. Like we did it with the first game, and we're gonna continue to do that for all our games. Thank you.
If there's no more questions, are those tattoos real?
Yes.
And why are your video games so violent? Sorry, that's just a joke.
Because you can't beat it in real life. Or you shouldn't beat it in real life.
Hello.
Hello.
So, okay. Maybe you have seen on the web that when EA announced Battlefront, the sort of sequel to Star Wars, I don't remember the original name, but gamers are furious about the fact that the game doesn't have as many maps as the prequel had. Of course, they don't understand that making maps nowadays takes longer, and then a sequel doesn't necessarily need to have the exact amount of content that the previous game plus more. But how do you deal with the expectations of the player that they just want the same content plus some additions? Because obviously I've seen people complaining about the fact that they cannot choose all of the masks that they could in the previous game, which is obviously, it doesn't really make sense, because obviously you wanted to do something different with it. They just either didn't understand it or felt entitled to have more content because they had previously already played the content in the previous game. So how do you feel about this, and what's your idea?
No matter what you do, you always lose someone. Like, you will lose fans. If you make the same game, you will lose fans that wanted it to be different, and if you make it different, you will lose fans that wanted it the same. But I think a lot of people look at the games like content over quality. Because the first game, there's like 30 masks, but they're like pretty much the same. Like the perks were actually added because Nigel, our publisher, had said that in an interview. From the beginning, it's just gonna be cosmetics, and he had said as like, oh shit. Oh well, we have to add some perks to this. So it's like, okay, it can be faster, more bullets. Okay, this guy can even be even more faster. So it's just, some of it is quite bullshit, actually. So in the second game, we wanted it to, like, each character, instead of making like 30 characters, we wanted to make 12 that are playing very, very, very differently. But I think a lot of people saw it like the quantity like is way higher than quality, actually, which is sad, because the characters were one of the things that we felt like people will actually like this, because they feel very, very differently from the first game, and it was actually one of the things that was bashed on the most. So it's sad.
But do you think there could be a way to communicate with the player, like to tell them that it's not about the number of the masks but the quality of them, like maybe showcasing the differences between the masks of the previous game? I'm not sure, like marketing strategy or design goal. How would you show this to a player? How would you make him understand that there's been work on these masks and it makes sense that there are less because they work better than they used to?
I think this is the huge problem, that you can't tell players what to think about your game. Like the second they see the trailer, they probably have like the idea of what it's gonna be. It is gonna be shit or it's gonna be good, and that idea will stick with them. So I don't believe in trying to inform the players. Just make the game, and they will have to like decide for themselves. And hopefully they will decide that it's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last questions? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.